Mental health has always been a part of the human experience, yet it's something we've only begun to understand in recent history. Imagine living thousands of years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, where the concept of mental illness was tied to the spiritual realm. Back then, the lines between physical, mental, and spiritual worlds were blurred, with mental disturbances often being attributed to wrath of gods or demonic possession. In the world's first known civilization, Mesopotamians believed that a troubled mind was the result of divine displeasure. They inscribed their beliefs onto clay tablets, offering glimpses into their attempts to explain the unexplainable. Rituals, incantations, and sacrifices were their treatments, methods that seem primitive now but were considered cutting edge at that time. But as we move forward through the ages, we see that the understanding of mental health has evolved alongside humanity. Fast forward to today and we find ourselves living in a world vastly different from that of our ancestors. Yet, despite all our advancements, mental health issues seem more prevalent than ever. How did we get here? Why does it feel like our mental well-being is in a state of decline even with all the knowledge and resources at our disposal? The story of mental health begins in the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia, around 2000 BC. In a world governed by the whims of gods and spirits, mental illness was seen as a curse or a divine punishment. The Mesopotamians believed that every illness, physical or mental, was the result of supernatural forces. The gods, they thought, could inflict mental suffering as a form of retribution, and the only way to cure it was through rituals, prayers, and sacrifices. Imagine being a person in those times, struggling with what we now know as anxiety or depression. Your community might turn to a priest who could perform elaborate rituals to appease the gods. These treatments were often brutal, exorcisms, bloodletting, or being subjected to isolation. The stigma was immense, and the mental illness was something to be feared and hidden away. Moving to ancient Egypt, we find that mental health was still heavily tied to spirituality, but there were hints of a more naturalistic approach. Egyptians believed that mental health issues could also be linked to physical causes, like an imbalance of bodily fluids or disruptions in the flow of vital energies. However, the most significant shift in thinking came from ancient Greece. Hippocrates, often referred to as the father of modern medicine, challenged the notion of divine punishment. He proposed that mental illnesses like physical ailments had natural causes and could be treated as such. Hippocrates introduced the concept of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, believing that an imbalance among these fluids could lead to mental disturbances. His approach laid the groundwork for a more rational, scientific exploration of mental health. Despite these advancements, the road to understanding mental health was anything but smooth. Greek and Roman societies began to explore the mind more deeply, but their treatments were still primitive by today's standards. Mental illness was often met with fear and misunderstanding, leading to inhumane practices like drilling holes into the skull to release evil spirits or confining the mentally ill in dark, cramped spaces. The fall of Rome and the rise of medieval period marked a dark chapter for mental health. The progress made by Greeks and Romans was lost as Europe plunged into the Middle Ages, a time when mental illness was once again linked to a supernatural. The mentally ill were often accused of witchcraft or possession, leading to horrific trials and punishments. It was a period of regression where the mind was a battleground between good and evil, with little room for the compassion or understanding we strive for today. As we step into the modern era, the understanding and treatment of mental health issues began to evolve more rapidly. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a turning point. The rise of psychology as a formal discipline, led by pioneers like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, introduced new ways of thinking about the mind. They moved away from the idea of mental illness as purely a physical or spiritual ailment, instead focusing on the unconscious mind, trauma, and the impact of earlier experiences. Freud's psychoanalysis became the cornerstone of early mental health treatment, where the emphasis was placed on uncovering repressed memories and understanding the subconscious. While controversial and often criticized, Freud's theories opened the door to more nuanced conversations about mental health. However, the treatments of the time were still far from ideal. Many patients were subjected to inhumane conditions like asylums, where they were isolated, restrained, and often misunderstood. During the mid-20th century, the world saw a shift towards more medicalized treatments for mental health issues. Electroconvulsive therapy became a common, though controversial, method for treating severe depression and other mental illnesses. At the same time, the discovery discovery of lithium as a treatment for bipolar disorder marked the beginning of psychopharmacology, using medications to manage mental health conditions. These developments were significant, offering relief to many who had previously suffered in silence. But they also highlighted the ongoing struggle to balance treatment with humanity. The 1960s and 70s brought a social revolution that extended to mental health care. The civil rights movements and growing public awareness led to the deinstitutionalization movement, where many psychiatric hospitals were closed and patients were moved to community-based care. This was a time of great change, as societies began to challenge the stigma associated with mental illness and advocate for more humane treatment. However, the transition wasn't smooth, and many patients found themselves without adequate support, leading to new challenges in mental health landscape. Fast forward to today, and we see a world that is more open about mental health than ever before. Conversations about anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues are now part of the mainstream, thanks to the tireless work of advocates, researchers, and those who bravely share their stories. The rise of digital technology has made therapy more accessible, with apps and teletherapy bringing mental health support to people's fingertips. But with this progress comes new challenges. The constant pressure of modern life, the pervasive influence of social media, and the ongoing stigma surrounding mental health issues continue to contribute to a growing mental health crisis. Today, mental health awareness is at an all-time high, yet so is the prevalence of mental health issues. The modern world, with all its conveniences and advancements, has created a paradox where we are more connected yet more isolated, more informed yet more anxious. Understanding this paradox is crucial as we move forward in addressing mental health challenges of our time. Despite the strides we have made in understanding and addressing mental health, there is a growing sense that our collective mental well-being is on the decline. But why? What is it about our modern lifestyle that's contributing to this crisis? To answer that, we need to look at several factors, each playing a role in the complex web of mental health challenges that we face today. First, there's the relentless pace of modern life. We live in a world that values productivity over well-being, where the grind never stops, and there's always something demanding our attention. Work has become more intense, with longer hours, less job security, and higher expectations. This constant pressure can lead to burnout, a condition that's become so common, it's now officially recognized by the World Health Organization. The result? Chronic stress, anxiety, and a feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed. Then there's the impact of technology, particularly social media. While it has the power to connect us, social media also has a dark side. The endless scroll, the constant comparison, and the pressure to present a perfect life. All these factors can contribute to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and depression. Studies have shown that heavy social media use is linked to poor mental health outcomes, particularly among young people. The very tools designed to bring us together can paradoxically make us feel more isolated and disconnected than ever before. The COVID-19 pandemic also played a significant role in the decline of mental health. The isolation of lockdowns, the fear of illness, the economic uncertainty, these factors have created a perfect storm of stress and anxiety. Even as the world begins to recover, the mental health impact of pandemic lingers. Many people are still struggling with the aftermath, dealing with the grief and a sense of unease about the future. The pandemic has exposed the fragility of our mental health, highlighting the need for greater support and resources. Lastly, there's the issue of accessibility. While mental health awareness has increased, access to care remains a challenge for many. Long waiting lists, high costs, and a shortage of mental health professionals mean that many people are unable to get the help they need. This gap in care can lead to worsening mental health issues, as people are left to struggle on their own. The irony is that in an age of unprecedented mental health awareness, many still find themselves without adequate support. All these factors, work stress, social media, the pandemic, and limited access to care, create a landscape where mental health is under constant threat. But it's not all doom and gloom. By understanding the challenges we face, we can begin to address them. We can prioritize our mental health, seek out support, and advocate for changes that make mental well-being a top priority. Because at the end of the day, our mental health is just as important as our physical health, if not more so.